And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to Behind the ToolBelt episode 215. Today, we have another special guest. Stay tuned. We will be back after our short intro from our sponsors.
TC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. TC Backer, TC Backer.
Is your lead flow down? Whether you're a company owner, office staff, salesperson, or installer, you're a roofing rock star. We help you get more leads with custom SEO, Google Ads, and a pro website.
TC Backer.
And we're back. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in each week and taking time out of your awesome day to spend some time with us. Hopefully, you're on your lunch break and get to relax, unwind, and listen to us jibber jabber. And hopefully, you'll get something from our show. But today we have another amazing guest. My friend, I consider him my friend, Robert Posey, the man, the myth, the legend, the CEO of RemoteRep.com, the former board advisor of Contractor Plus, former, hopefully you don't mind me saying your formers because I'm giving you cred, street cred here a little bit. The former CRO of at roofing.com, which is where I probably met you the first time. You worked with Hunter Blue over at the Revolt. And currently now you're working with Limitless Roofing Group along with, and we'll talk about this later, but chat with Robert. I'd like to hear a little more about that. But Robert, how the heck are you, buddy? How's it going?
Man, I'm phenomenal, and also dealing with probably all of the same stuff that other business owners are dealing with.
Love that. Love that. The authenticity of and honesty of the woes of entrepreneurship.
Well, so I actually just ordered some silver. On Sunday. I was sitting across from my dad at breakfast, and we were talking about stocks and some other stuff, and we were talking about silver as well. So I ordered some, and these particular coins, I don't know if you can see this, but that's a Fortis Fortuna Adjuvat. And I don't know if I'm saying that properly, but fortune favors the bold. And yeah, I guess that answer, people ask, like, how are you? And the general response is like, oh, I'm doing great. And it's like, yeah, of course, everybody's, doing great when they put that show on for a stranger or whatever. I am doing great, but it doesn't mean I don't have, the same woes as everybody else. Like that's part of it. We sign up for the entrepreneurial journey, and you're going to deal with some stuff. So I'm in a really cool spot where I switched from being a sales guy, sales team builder, focused on marketing and sales. And 3 years ago, I took on a software project. So imagine starting your career over as a software guy with no technical background. So yeah, man, but it's been good. So just chipping away, having a phenomenal time. We could have a great big exit on the back end of all this effort, or it could be for nothing. I don't know. But fortune favors the bold. So
There you go. There you go.
yeah,
Good
man.
stuff. I mean, I guess we could pull a couple topics out of that and venture down a couple different rabbit holes there. Anyone too, not just necessarily entrepreneurs, but anyone working in a high level, position, C-class management, leadership. I think we all suffer from whatever. I mean, it could be insecurity, overwhelmment, stress. Stress is typically the pressure that we put on ourselves most of the time, and that's a pretty good topic too at times. But the pressures that we put on ourselves of being and putting ourselves. This is the thing I try to remember too. Like I put myself in this situation, right? So,
Yeah.
who to me, right? Like, and I catch myself sometimes too, especially talking to Vic, like where I'm, the woe is me, and it's kind of like, well, how stupid do I sound right now? Probably to somebody that looking from the outside in, thinking, dude, what, shut up, like, So when you put it into that perspective, and be careful on who your woe is me to, but the other thing too, when you were speaking, it's like, us being in management positions or leadership roles too, we have to show up with that smile on our face, even though we're dealing with all of these things. And being an entrepreneur also doesn't give us the permission to be assholes. And that's the other thing too, that I have to think about at times. And we've been talking about this quite often. I just recently read a book called The Energy Bus. I can't remember the author of this, but Joy is a bus driver on this energy bus, and they talk about creating and being CEOs, which is Chief Energy Officer, right? So I actually went to the extent of changing my signature out to, instead of like founder or owner or whatever, I put CEO, and then right under it, I put Chief Energy Officer. Now, most people probably think because we're a solar company.
I was literally thinking in my head, does anybody ever confuse that?
Which is fine because we do install solar, but those around me know. And plus, I see it 1,500 times a day. If you would see my monitor, you would see 1,500 different emails in there, and you can see my signature in every single one of them. So that's like a seed that I plant.
Yeah.
This metaphoric or this can't think of the right word right this second, but these little seeds that I have to drop for myself, because I know when I go outside this door here, because my office is right behind us, that I need to put that, whether it's a fake smile or if it's a true genuine smile. But this is the other thing too, is that I tend to get caught up in the 5%, right? The 5% negative, and not really focus on the 95% of everything that's awesome in my life today.
Yeah.
Right. And that can be as small as just having food in the refrigerator, to something as grandiose as that we just landed a multi-8-figure job that day or something. Right. But there's that small percentage of crap that I just want to continue to keep picking at that scab. Right. And just make it worse and make it bleed. And then I drag that shit into the next meeting, and then I drag it into the next meeting, and then I drag that shit home. Right. And because I'm an entrepreneur, I think that gives me the permission. Like, if you knew what I was going through right now, you could be an asshole too. Right. And it's like, no, we signed up for this. I signed up for this. I prayed for all this shit 5 years ago. And here I am. I'm crying about the pressure that I put on myself because I have a car. I have a driver's license today. Right. And many years ago, I didn't have one.
Sure.
I have a driver's license. I have a vehicle. I have a lovely family. My children are healthy. And really, at the end of the day, those few things that I just mentioned are really, really the only thing that matters.
Yeah. Well, and you're talking about the woe is me sort of thing. Like, we're human, so we go through that. Man, in the last year, like I always have chief revenue officer clients. I stand in as like a fractional CRO. And I had a client who had a sales rep issue, but he also had a lead flow issue. So it's like chicken before the egg. So what do we do? So me being a sales professional from the background, it was like, all right, we need like let's get a cash infusion from our retainer, but also, I mean, you'll pay me to take some calls. I'll take 3 calls a day. I'll close some deals for you. I'll do that until you can correct your lead flow so I can place a sales rep, because I can't place a sales rep if there's not an opportunity for them to earn a living, keep a roof over their head, that sort of stuff. Well, it ended up going a lot longer than I had anticipated, which took me away from a lot of my goals. And I try to keep like a performance, a consciousness coach, some sort of a personal development coach with me at all times. Or, you know, I pay them. They're not with me, but I voiced some frustration to actually Dr. Nick Lucas. I'll give him a plug there because he's a rock star. But I voiced to him like, hey man, like I'm getting my butt kicked over here. And he's like, okay, well, let's reframe this a little bit. And he asked me, he's like, okay, do you need the client to move you closer to your goals? Yes. Okay. In order to get the client, did you have to agree to take some sales calls? Yes. So does taking sales calls move you closer to your goal? Yes. Okay. So if taking the sales calls is uncomfortable but moves you closer to your goal, is it worth taking the sales calls? Yes. Okay, so what are you complaining about? And it was like, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
So simple. The other thing too is like on the back of that, if I made the decision to grow my company, does having a company come with challenges? Yes. Are challenges worth solving to move you closer to your goal? Yes. Are you going to get it right all the time? And this is one that I think a lot of C-suite and or owners, they forget or never realize. Our job is not to be right every time. It's to be right a percentage of the time. It's to know without a shadow of a doubt, unequivocally, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. Like maybe not in the grand scheme of things. If you quit, you fail. But if you keep going, you won't fail. You just have to keep going. So a different mentor of mine told me a few years ago, like actually it's been a while, almost 10 years ago. He looked at me and he was like, dude, fail faster. And it was like, touche. Like, fail faster. You're going to get it out of the way. So we deal with decision fatigue. A lot of us, it's a very real thing. If you've never looked it up, look up decision fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chemical process. It's kind of like having an adrenaline rush all the time. Like eventually you're going to get worn out. So when you're making these decisions, chemically in your brain, it's heavy. So if I am worried, am I going to fail or am I going to succeed? Which one's the best course of action to prevent me from failing? You get into this battle that it weighs a lot on you. Well, if you can create a process that's like, you know, box 1, box 2, box 3. If all 3 boxes are checked, great, make the decision. We move forward knowing fully that even if we fail, we lose what? 30 days, 90 days, you know, pay attention to what it looks like to succeed versus not to succeed. Take the wins, keep those, get rid of the things you didn't win, and keep moving, but fail faster. So anyways, yeah, I agree. We signed up for this and I love it.
I love that. A couple of things here. Anyone in life, can apply that, what you just said, every single word, whether it's a parent with their children, right? Trying to make decisions all the time, anyone, we're all leaders to a certain extent. We're either leading our household, and we're going to make mistakes, but through that, so to segue into how important failure is, right, or mistakes being made, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Where failure, the only time I fail is when I actually quit. Right, like if I quit, now there are some things that I need to pivot and deviate. Change course of action, whatever that case is. But I think if you just, take this job and shove it and jump in your car and take your ball home and because something, I think that's a failure, right?
Yeah.
But being a parent, being a leader of whatever organization that you're part of, it could be a nonprofit, could be, a roofing, company, whatever organization you're part of, could be your household organization, right? I think when we quit or give up on our children or our teammates, that's when we failed. And the other thing is too, right? Like, so being in a leadership position too, we have to become calloused or grow a higher tolerance for mistakes, right? Whether it's our mistakes or our teams making mistakes, but without those mistakes, we don't gain experience. And through that experience, we become better human beings. We become better professionals, because of the experience that we just experienced, right? Without those, and even sometimes, like, and it's hard for me to bite my tongue, even when I know, and I don't know how many times I've been wrong by saying, no, don't do it this way, right? But then they did it another way, and it was, more timely, it was cleaner, it was better, even though I thought they should have did it. So one, I need to learn how to first and foremost trust, right? I need to trust, in the process, trust in human beings, trust in our co-leaders, trust my children, right? That they're going to make the right decisions when they're at school, when they go off to college, when they're out a neighbor's house. I'm trusting the fact that, and really it's no different. So why would I not trust Vic that he wouldn't have the studio, sounding good, looking good, even though I want to get in there and say, oh no, the camera's too high, I bring the camera down. But it's like, you know what? Once I leave go of that control, and if the camera was at the wrong height, and I'm just using this as an example, I needed him to go through that, because how else would he ever know that the camera's too low, too high, it's too bright, these things, without that experience?
Have you ever heard the I think it's a Charles Schwab story? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so. Continue.
So, all right, the way I understand this story was Charles Schwab, like world famous, one of the wealthiest guys of the early 1900s. He had his right-hand guy, and then he had this sales rep. Sales rep makes a mistake, cost the company like an $800,000 order. And at the time, $800,000 is probably, I don't know what, $10 million today. I have no idea what that translates to, but a bunch, right? And this pops up in a meeting, and the right-hand guy, he's like, don't worry about it, Chuck. I'll fire him right now. And Charles is like, stop. Don't. Please do not fire him. And he's like, why not? Well, I just spent $800,000 educating him.
Love that.
Right?
Love that. Exactly. You will gain no better experience. I mean, because how are you supposed to gain experience without failure, or trying, or allowing fear to hold you back because of fear of failure?
Well, so there's two words, like these are kind of forming into my words for kind of the last quarter of 2023, and then now they've carried over into the first quarter of 2024. Two words: awareness and clarity. Like, I want to say it. I wish I knew the words to say for somebody to, like, sit down, if you're listening, like, look me in my eyes and hear me when I say awareness and clarity. It's not meant to be a passive, like, oh yeah, cool, I'll be more aware. Like, oh yeah, I should work on my clarity. No, you should work on your clarity. You should take the time, figure out the questions you need to ask in order to gain the awareness and the clarity, so that each decision is more impactful, not just the decisions you're making, but the scope of work, or whatever it is that you're giving to your team. So it's pretty easy if you break it down. Like, I'll give you really simple interrogative questions: who, what, when, where, why, how much. Right? These questions are a really great place to start. So whatever the topic, studio. Okay. Who? Me? Let me ask. Am I the best person based on my previous experience to get that set up right? If it was me, no, I'm not. So I have a bit of awareness now. All right. Now, if I were to communicate, if I were to find the right person, how would I communicate with them what I wanted? Right? All of this is just question. If you go into it with no awareness, if you haven't asked yourself these questions, then you're being guided by ego. And that ego is a survival mechanism. It's literally there to help you survive. Only the difference is when the human being was first developed, as we started to, I don't know. I don't want to use the word evolve. I don't know the audience too well, but we'll use the word evolved. So as human beings, progressed, we started to learn new things. There were like battles and wars fought with bows and arrows and spears and clubs. There were saber-toothed tigers in the bushes, and right, there was some stuff the ego had to be aware of, and it was life and death. So now today, we don't presently think of our decisions as life and death, but that ego does. And so we'll die on this hill because we lack the awareness. We haven't taken the time to slow down. And if you're not moving me closer to my goal, then you're a saber-toothed tiger, and I simply can't stand it. I need to beat it metaphorically over the head with my club and kill this saber-toothed tiger that may keep me from reaching my goals. Right? So I have to ask, is Vic a saber-toothed tiger? Probably not. He's probably like a super experienced AV guy. And therefore, he may be the right person to lead that project. So how do we slow down? Who, what, when, where, how, why, maybe even how much? And then what questions can you ask? So journal it, write it out, figure it out, get the clarity you need so that you can lead that or not lead that.
Wow. That was good. I was telling Vic how deeply intellectual you were and how great this show was going to be, because he gets deep, and that this is what attracted me to you the most.
I'm attracted to you too, Ty.
Yeah. Well, and not just intellectually, but sexually. But that'll be that'll probably be episode 300. We talk about our manly.
I'm here.
I know you are. You're a ride or die, and it's a shame that we don't talk more often, because that's the cool thing about our relationship is, Robert, that we don't see each other that often, but when we do, we just kind of pick right where we left off. Like, hey man, how's the family? And we just kind of run with it like that, and we always have gelled well, I think, and to be able to experience any of your lessons that I've got to sit in on, and the impact that you've had on individuals' lives. And that's why I felt like and Vic, we felt like after I shared my experience with you about you to Vic, we were like, yo man, we got to get Robert on. And that conversation between Vic and I started back when we saw each other in Dallas a few weeks ago. I was like, dude, we got to get Robert on. But I didn't want to do like the 5-10 minute blip, that we were doing there at the show. I really wanted to get you on the show, our Wednesday afternoon, regularly scheduled program here, because, we have a good following. And I think just the stuff that you talk about at the level that you get down in there, and it's like, and I even told Vic, I was like, it's so obvious, but it's like not obvious to us. And after you say it, it's like, yeah, you're right. The who, what, where, you know what I mean? And to look at it, like to get your ego and your pride out of the way. And like you said, the ego being, a defense mechanism, how crippling is that for an individual? And how often has that ego gotten in the way and created a lid from growth?
Yeah.
right? To learning how to delegate and being okay with not taking the credit, and then giving the credit to someone else and acknowledging that to them, like, man, you are so good, man, you're so smart, thank you so much, we wouldn't be here without you. And how much further that will take you and take them, to want to shine like a diamond, and it's so incredibly important, that we're not allowing our ego to get in the way and cloud our judgment, right? Because I don't know how many times that I've even, now that I've been aware of, my ego and stuff, and we, the groups of people that I run with, we talk about ego and pride and fear. Right. Fear is an acronym for, F everything and run, or face everything and rise. Right.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And ego is like edging God out, is another, acronym, for the, some of the sum of that I surround myself with. Right. So we have these intellectual, maybe not as deep as you can get them, but that's why, we need to talk more often so I can get more
Tag
from
me in, man. I'm happy
Yeah.
to show up. And I
Right.
really appreciate you saying what you said there. The feeling is mutual. Like, I remember the first time I saw you, like, you pulled up. I think you were a little bit late to that retreat, right?
Yeah.
And
A couple years ago. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I first saw you. I think I was standing on the balcony when you pulled up, and like, I was like, I don't know who this guy is. Um, I had to say, like, there was a presence, because I kind of knew by reputation who you were. Like, I was a little bit intimidated, like, frankly, like, I wasn't sure who this guy was. And turns out, like, Ty's one of the coolest human beings on the planet. So the feeling's mutual, man. And I'm
Thank you.
grateful to be here.
Yeah. I'm just average Joe. I really, Joe the roofer. But yeah, no, and to kind of circle back to that topic of ego and getting, unfortunately holds so many of us back, until you're actually aware of that and learning, the questions that you were talking about, learning to ask the right questions, I think is also a skill that you can work on, after failing so many times. Maybe, unfortunately, that's a failure of mine that I've had, where I've allowed leadership to become a lid and continued to push myself, saying to myself, well, how am I going to figure this out? How am I going to figure this out? How am I going to figure this out? And screaming, grow, 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 go, go, go. And I'm pointing the finger, right? But not even identifying that I have three more pointing back at me. Like I'm the problem. And it's like, you know what? I need to stop looking at how am I going to do this, but who are we going to get
Man,
to do
there's
this?
so many people that can talk about this sort of stuff and they say it, but in practice, again, another question or a quote, a framework. It's little frameworks that you can insert and decide. Decision is like, you can't get to the next step if a decision isn't made. So decide to follow the framework. If I own the business, I didn't see Larry Yatch give his talk. You may have seen it. I wasn't there in Utah for that retreat, but Larry Yatch apparently gave a talk, and the way I understand it was he spoke about to have and to hold. And the way it was given to me was that who has the responsibility? It's always me. If especially I'm the business owner, it's always me. Period. Who holds the responsibility? Whoever the teammate or family member or whatever, I give that responsibility. So whether it's in the household, like, I've been assigned, patriarchal or I'm the man of the house or whatever. I want to keep a clean, organized house. I want to define that a little bit, right? If the dishes are backed up and they're stacked up in the sink, and it was my son's day that day to do the dishes, but the dishes are backed up in the sink, who has that responsibility? It's still me, because I'm the leader of the household. Who holds that responsibility? It's him, right? And there's accountability that gets to come on the backside of that. So I think if you can simply put the framework and just either assume it's me every time, I failed. I made the decision. It didn't happen. I failed. Whether I gave it to someone else or not, I failed. Maybe I made the wrong hire. I actually just went through that with a marketing coordinator, and like she's chewing my ass in emails right now because she does not feel like she made any mistakes. Well, I have to take the responsibility for that. In this particular case, bad hire. I gave her the scope. I gave her the who, what, when, where, how, and why of how the job needed to, what it looked like to succeed. I was clear. I told her my management style, and I gave her permission to ask me as many questions as was necessary for her to get the job done. Well, either she asked me questions and I didn't answer them well enough, I didn't guide her well enough, or I made a bad hire. In either case, I was clear on my instructions and that she had permission to ask me questions. I didn't answer them or guide her. My fault. I hired somebody, didn't vet them well enough, kept them too long. My fault. My responsibility. So I don't even know if you need to call it fault, because I think fault implies wrongdoing or something along those lines. It's just a matter of responsibility. It was my responsibility. So what do?
Yeah.
Now I know. So I move on, make a new decision. So I have since taken on all of those roles in order to get them caught back up. We just hit day 31. I'm 70% of the way done with the objectives that she missed. That's okay. But I need to figure them out. Whether it's hiring a new person, whether it's me stepping in and getting it done, is always on me. So that framework, if you're somebody who's, wants to move forward and better your life, if you don't have the awareness of whose responsibility is, it's you.
Yeah.
Period. And I don't care if you're an employee, a sales rep. I don't care if you're the company owner. If you want to improve your life, it's always you. No matter what stage you're in, if you're involved, it's your responsibility. Period.
I love that. Love that. That was good. There was a couple of things I was thinking about when you were talking, to be able to own that responsibility, right? To have shoulders broad enough to say, and to admit, and you don't have to loudly or vocalize to everybody in the room that, this is my fault, but just owning it, that, it was my judgment call to hire this individual. It was my responsibility to articulate that message well enough to them. And maybe I did a piss poor job, or maybe they're just incompetent, right?
Yeah.
Either case, I need to own every bit of that, because as leaders, right, we have to take the blame and give others the credit, right? Unfortunately, being in the positions that we're in, and that could be anything that we're leading. And that's at times is a tough pill to swallow, owning that, and, I'm guilty of really kicking the shit out of myself, because of that, not because I make poor decisions after poor decisions, but I own a lot of stuff. Like I own the outcome of a lot of stuff, and try to reward and give credit to those things that are going smoothly. But identifying that, going back to the three fingers pointing back to me, you know what I mean? This is a learning experience too. This was something else I was thinking about, like how much you've learned through this process, right? Like right now you're kind of like, God, what, I don't have time. We're at day 31, but like, okay, so let's unpack that for a minute. You know what I mean? What have you learned thus far? Because through this 31-day journey, let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Let's unpack that a little bit. Let's see. So a lot of it comes down to processes. So these objectives that this marketing coordinator was meant to help me with, they were big objectives when I started to write out the scope doc. And I've got get on ChatGPT and ask it for a template to create a quarterly scope. It'll do it. And then you can ask ChatGPT to help me write a template for my SOPs. So I had all of that built out, and I built my scope doc. It includes Whose responsibility is it? What technology is necessary? What's the budget for each scope or each project, or OKR, objectives, and key results? All of this stuff was outlined. So that was the first time that I really had to dive into that, or wanted to dive into that for my own company. I thought we did a great job. Interviewed well. And what I think I zoomed in too far, because these objectives were marketing objectives. I'm a sales guy. I'm currently handling all the interactions with the developers, trying to get them my vision. So marketing was like, man, I don't ever claim to be like the greatest marketer in the world. A lot of that's fear-based, because I think a lot of marketing is like waving a flag, like, hey, I'm here, I exist, look at me, in its simplest form. There's more to it than that. But I knew that if I hired somebody else to control it and said, here's what I need, here's the objectives, and let them just do it, it would help me remove some of that fear. So that gave me some awareness, like, why am I handing this off? When she didn't get it done, that's when it was like, I have no choice. Like, let's get it done. And I know that I'm fast enough. Like, I'm a pretty versatile dude. I moved through a computer very quickly. And so I just started. Go. And we ended up, our software platform took our first sale without my interaction, completely independent of me, took our first sale this past Sunday, which, I mean, it was a $299 sale. It's such small potatoes. But what I realized is I've been a sales team guy, which means I'm on a phone or on a Zoom in order to close transactions. I've now created a money box, an infinite money machine that, as long as I get enough people to it, they'll pay and I don't have to do anything. And it was like, wow, leveled up on Sunday at breakfast with my dad. The craziest story is I bought these coins to say fortune favors the bold on them. Literally, the payment went out, and then my watch notification came in, new payment, $299. And it was like, what? Amazing. We can get into like closed doors and open windows and how that type of thing happens to me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to your question, I dove in, I got nitty gritty on what each objective is. And I come to realize, like, cold email is one. Let's just open up the hatch a little bit. So cold email was one of our objectives. Organic social media, one of the objectives. Get the website done. It's done. So that's 20% of the way there. And there's a couple others, but those three things right there were the ones that kind of had me the most worried. Well, I realized if somebody would interview me once a week and let me speak on one topic to them, and they just ask me questions, I can take that, turn it into templates, or take the audio and the video, process that. I can take the transcript, run it through Grammarly. It'll edit everything for me, or run it through ChatGPT and just say, hey, correct the typos. It'll fix the transcript. Then I take those and we turn them into, like a post a day, 5 posts, long form, short form, and I guess middle of the road, whatever that is. And then I put that into a social media planner that's going to push it out. The only thing I can't hand off is interviewing me. That's it. That was the only thing. Everything else was like, I could use, I use a tool called Scribe. I go through, I do it one time. Scribe captures everything. I hand it to a VA and I say, hey, I want you to try this. Do it for a week. And before you push go, let's review it together. Done. Organic social's done. It took me an extra hour or two to really just sit down and do it. And what I guess being able to zoom out, look at it for what it is, realize, oh wait, I don't need to pay a full-time marketing coordinator to run that aspect of my business. Save me a bunch of money, save me a bunch of time, a bunch of hiring headaches and that sort of stuff. So we get to move forward. So I think having an awareness of the problem and not deflecting or hiding that fear. What did you call it? F everything
And run.
F everything.
or face everything and rise.
Right. So that was the difference.
Yeah.
When I hiring that person was me trying to avoid, and having to fire that person forced me to face it.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
was when we started this. That was the thing I was talking about, where like I'm dealing with normal business owner stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. It's also good because while I'm facing it, I'm also figuring out all the cool
Right.
ways to solve it.
Well, and that's kind of why I wanted to unpack that a little bit, because that kind of, interweaves into our whole entire conversation here, right? Whether it's the ego, whether it's the fear, whether it's the owning it, the responsibility of success of a project, success over my life, whatever the case might be. So that's why I said, well, let's unpack that a little bit and get a little intellectual with what you may be able to identify right now. It's like, okay, well, I've mastered my product. Right. If I would have had somebody else and I delegated this to somebody else because at that moment I thought I was inundated with other tasks that I needed to take care of. But I don't, I think through that learning process of like, okay, that doubt, that self-doubt and that fear that you walk through, it's like, okay, either I can F everything and run at this moment, or I can face everything and rise. And it sounds like you chose the latter, right? Like we're going to face everything here and we're going to rise. I'm going to figure out the SOPs and the framework that you tried to delegate to somebody else, but now you've mastered your product. Now, maybe you can speak more intelligently to a prospect because, like you said, you come from the background, 18 years, I think, of professional salesmen, right? Industry or whatever that you're a salesperson. You've coached, trained, recruited salespeople. So now that when you sit in front of somebody who might be interested in your product, now you know it inside and out. You're educated on it now. So now you have the opportunity to be able to educate them. It's really no difference when it comes to roofing sales. One of our biggest thing is to educate the new hire, right, on product knowledge, right? Because if you don't know how to build a roof, how are you going to be able to sell a roof?
Yeah.
Right. Now, unfortunately for your case, yours was a little bit more elaborate opposed to building out a roof and the 5 components that gives it a gold pledge warranty. Right.
I don't even think so. Like I was just thinking that, like, what is a business? What is it? You got a leadership team, you got some accounting, you got operations, you got sales, you got marketing. There's five components there. You said there's 5 components when it comes to a roof. Like everything, I've said this for years. Businesses don't have problems, people have problems. If I take the people out and I look at 5 different businesses, odds are that they have 2 or 3 problems, and it's probably the same problems in each one. And I would wager it's the person on the back end, the one who has the responsibility, that's probably the reason or the cause for all of those problems. It's pretty simple. That's why I love what I do, because like my company, if you look at the Secretary of State, it's rocket surgeon. Rocket surgeon is a play on words, right? Rocket scientist or a brain surgeon. It's simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. We as people complicate it. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. That was good. That was good. And I love our conversation right now. And Mike Gippy just chimed in and said that was a great conversation. And there's quite a few people in there that's listening right now. And this is that vulnerable stuff that I think most men and even women are very uncomfortable to talk about themselves, and their character defects or their shortcomings, right? Shortcomings, the things that I fall short on, in my life. And it comes down to self-awareness, right? Self-awareness. And a lot of people I don't think really know at a deeper level that I'm talking about right now, how to self-reflect or be self-aware, right? And one of our things that we're doing as a company and as personally. I've shared my thought about the New Year's resolution, right? Like most people want to add things, pile on new goals on top of those goals that we didn't even accomplish the year before, right? And then that becomes a broken promise, and then that affects my self-esteem, right? Because that's where low self-esteem comes from, on many different facets, maybe not all facets, but due to the broken promises I made to myself, it gives me low self-esteem, right?
Yeah.
At least for me. So what are we going to remove? Right. What are we going to remove this year? Like, instead of piling a bunch of shit on there, what people, places, things, and situations am I going to remove in my personal life? And Vic, hopefully you're not tired of hearing this conversation, because he's the one I bounce these crazy ideas off of, and so then we can make room, right? So because when I'm distracted by all of these time sucking things, all of these resource sucking things, all of these energy sucking things, and all these financial sucking things, I'm distracted now, right? Like, now I'm not even enjoying myself because I'm doing a bunch of things that cost me money. It's taking my energy. It's giving me low self-esteem because I'm filled with anxiety because I feel like I need to be over here. Okay. Well, what are those things, and what can I delegate to? How can I, who's responsible enough? Am I going to be responsible enough to learn how to delegate and find that people, place, or thing that I can delegate this to, and let go of certain things, right? And whatever I'm letting go of may actually end up improving somebody else's life, right? Like, give them a career opportunity to open up, to make more money, or give them more responsibility to feel more part of. And here I'm hoarding all this shit that's just making me miserable right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But going back to what you were saying there, it is your responsibility if you didn't make a correct decision, and you need to have that uncomfortable conversation, because that's a whole different topic there with this individual that you had to let go. Because sometimes I think, because the fear kicks in again of conflict, that uncomfortable conversation that I need to have with this individual, that basically tell them the nicest, kindest way I possibly can is that you suck at your job and you are now dismissed, right? So how do we sugarcoat that? And that's a whole nother topic on how to speak to people in a way that you can say what you mean without being mean when you say it.
Well,
yeah.
So, all right. I have thoughts. I've got a bunch of thoughts here.
I don't believe that for 1 minute.
So let's talk about for just a second. Let me ask you this. Does Vic have the ability to search something and put something on the screen, or can I?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So there, if you look up on Google Images, emotional frequency chart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second.
This is a really cool chart, and I want to go to habits, anxiety, esteem, and self-discipline. So one of the let me
Yeah, what was it again? Give it to us what it was.
Emotional frequency chart.
Okay.
Now you can use this. There's a handful of ways to use this, but let me preface by saying I am not Andy Frisella. I've never completed 75 hard. I thought about it a couple times. I did do two big challenges in the last couple of years. One, I did 100 burpees a day for 31 days. Right? That was just that seems reasonable. I'll do that. You don't know how many burpees 100 burpees is, apparently. So I did that one. And then I also did 12 months of no alcohol. Right?
I remember that.
Yeah, finished November 13th. And like now I pretty much don't drink. I've had a couple drinks, whatever. But here's why I bring up these challenges. When I finished my 100 burpees, I felt like a god. Like I finished these 3,100 burpees. When I started, it took me like 43 minutes, I think my first time was. When I finished, I did it in 9 minutes and 46 seconds. 100 burpees straight through. Boom, 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 boom. Go, go, go. What a difference, right? When I finished that, I was soaring. So the quote that was given to me by one of my personal development mentors was, self-discipline is the prerequisite for self-respect, and self-respect is the prerequisite for courage. Now, this ties into our chart. If we are able to get it up, or if we're not, I can describe it pretty easily. But
He's getting there.
imagine a wavelength, right? So scientists now have the ability to put a machine in a room with you, show you a picture of your loved one, and they can measure the frequency of love.
Mm-hmm.
They can show you something scary, and they can measure the frequency of fear. There's all these emotions in between there, right? There's enlightenment and joy. There's willingness. There's courage. Courage, by the way, is right in the middle of the chart in terms of frequency. If you go down to the bottom, you have guilt, and the last one is shame. When you're operating out of integrity with yourself, you're going to experience guilt. The feeling of guilt is, I did something bad. The experience of shame is, I'm a bad person. So if we continue to let ourselves down, it's no longer I did something bad. It's I keep doing things that are bad, and now I must not be good. So we experience shame. So one thing I would tell you, and like I said, I'm not the Andy Frisella, like super duper do these challenges type of guy, but I've done a couple, and I can tell you if you pick, perfect, right here. So you see at the bottom of the chart, we're contracted. If you enter into below courage, you're prideful, you're angry, you start to like go into desire. What's the difference in anger and desire? When I have like, man, I wish I had a successful business. Man, I hate my car. I wish I had a different car. Eventually you get angry enough that you're going to start fighting for it. Anger that's when there's a decision starting to be made. Pride, okay, I'm proud. I am somebody who can accomplish this. When you start to believe in yourself, your frequency starts to expand and you reach toward courage. Courage is, I'm going to do something about it. I've made a decision. Here I am. Fight me. Like, right? I'm feeling courageous. So if we can take that shame, that guilt, if we can start to become aware of it, then we have to somehow get to the place of going through grief, experiencing that fear that, oh my God, who do I have to become? It's not, I'm afraid of success. It's, I'm afraid of who I would have to become or what I have to let go of in order to change. But one of my favorite quotes, change is only possible on the precipice of destruction. So if you're feeling close to destruction in whatever area of your life, whether it's your diet and your nutrition, it's breaking a bad habit. Like for me, I'm still working on smoking cigarettes, right? These things, when it becomes bad enough, that is when we start to make these changes. If you look on the right side of this image, expanded and contracted, have you ever walked into a room and you could feel two people have been arguing in that room? And you're like, whoa, you could cut the tension in here with a butter knife, right? You felt that. Or you ever been in a relationship with, your significant other and you no longer feel in love. And there's a conversation that comes up like, I just don't know if I love you anymore, right? These are contracted because one or both of you are operating from fear, grief, apathy, guilt, or shame. So being aware of the emotion and that it is a frequency, what can you do? Go back to the quote, self-discipline is the prerequisite for self-respect, and self-respect is the prerequisite for courage. If courage is where we start making these decisions to change, then we need some discipline and we need some self-respect in our life. So I would encourage you to do something that you're capable of. Like you said, maybe it's what can I cut out Maybe it's I'm going to cut out Coca-Colas for, ever, or for 30 days. If you make it, then you feel pretty good. Like, hey, I did it. Right? Cigarettes. It could be, maybe it's doing something like 100 burpees a day. Hunter Ballou has the famous Fearless 44 challenge, which if you've never done is a great place to start. It will kick your butt and it'll make you real uncomfortable. But on the backside of it, there's power, there's self-respect, there's a position of, I did it. I am somebody. I'll share a story. So I left. I got pretty out of shape for a while. My left knee was kind of going bad. It was that way for like 10 years. Found Knees Over Toes guy on YouTube. And I rehabbed my own knee, doing things that I had been told were wrong my whole life. So I rehabbed it. And I got to a place where it's like, I'm going to run. I'm going to do some running. So I started running. I started getting back into working out. I'm in Utah at a retreat, a revolt retreat. And Graham Desert comes on. He did a Murph 365 days in a row. If you don't know what a Murph is, you run a mile, you do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 squats, and then you run another mile. Named for Lieutenant Michael Murphy, the Navy SEAL from the movie Lone Survivor. So I wasn't ready to do that, but there was a bunch of guys doing these Murphs. And Graham's like, hey, man, just come. Like, you're going to be able to finish. It might suck and you might hate it. You might throw up, but you're going to finish. And nobody's going to leave you behind, because the whole idea behind this is no man left behind. So I go, I commit. It took me like 59 minutes, which a good time, the records are like in the 30s, like 33 something, I think is the record. They say if you can do it in under an hour, like good, you made it. I knew that I was not going to be able to finish, but they stayed behind. And by the time we got to the end, Brandon Allen actually stayed with me. I was the last one to finish. When I did it, there was like tears, and there was this awakening where before that, I was the guy who, man, one day, I might do it one day. Like, I'll work toward it and eventually I'll get there. But when I did it, and I had a moment of courage, it was forced and it was a bit of peer pressure, but I did it. And when I got done, like, the tears were not because I was in pain. The tears were because nobody could ever fucking take it away from me that I did it. Mm-hmm. I did it. I succeeded. I finished. And yeah, it was miserable. Like, I was in so much pain. But when I got back, I was euphoric because I did it. That was in a single day. I went from a guy who couldn't to a guy who did. And I traveled up that emotional frequency chart extremely fast. So something to be said for that.
Amazing story. That was good. That was good. And, that's a good feel-good story for anyone that's listening, any of our guests that are listening. That self-doubt, but with the encouragement of Graham, right? And then Brandon Allen, like, sticking behind you, like, look, dude, we're going to do this and we're going to do this together. And, and sometimes we need, there's a lot of morals to this story here. What we can't do by ourselves, we can do together, right? And and that self-doubt, right? That telling ourselves we can't do something, but yet pushing ourselves to do something outside of our comfort zone, and how that made you feel, right? And that kind of goes back into like that broken promise. Like, if you wouldn't have completed it, think about how devastated you would have felt, in a negative way, but you chose to push through it and actually came in under, the 60-minute mark, which in itself is pretty amazing. Because I'm sitting here thinking of, to run a mile, do 200 push-ups, 300 sit-ups, and run another mile.
Pull-ups, push-ups, then squats. Yeah, it was miserable.
Yeah, and then for Graham to do it 365 times, like that.
You know why he did it though, right? Have you met Graham?
I don't remember. Yeah, I know him through social commerce, but I don't know if I've ever actually physically met him.
He said he felt like he was lacking discipline in his life, so he did it. And if you ever see Graham, like, dude's a tank.
Oh
He
yeah.
is an absolute like I mean, he looks. I don't think he started that way though. Like he earned that, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's the little things. You ever seen the Admiral who talks about making your bed every day?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think I read it.
I've not read the book, but even that, just make your bed every day. If you're feeling low and you're not sure what to do, just make your bed every day.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
start with something. Earn
Yeah.
a little of that self-respect. Then keep
Right.
going.
We call them stacking wins, and making your
Yeah.
bed would definitely be a little win. It's not the victory, but you stack enough wins, you'll end up at the finish line
Yeah.
for sure. Just baby steps. So we're at our hour mark here, I think. Such a great conversation, man. Thank you for coming on. I mean, it's just this was definitely one to put in the books as the one of the top 10 episodes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we didn't even get to talk about burglary and grand larceny.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, but again, we can bring that up in the episode 300.
Yeah.
When we talk about the fear and loathing.
Yeah, let's do it fireside.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But no, always great to see you, dude. Our conversations are always along the lines of this somehow, and that's why I was really looking forward, maybe even a little bit nervous. I don't know why, to have you come on the show, just because I was hoping that I could keep up with your intellectualness. But I've come to be able to follow where you're at, and what you're putting down. I can usually pick up pretty quickly. And like I told Vic, man, like I know you were going to just drop golden coins all over the place for us to pick up today.
Yeah.
And I know, that selfishly, but more importantly, those that are viewing and watching and listening. And I guess I'll plug the show here real quick. Don't forget to like, love, subscribe to, YouTube, Apple and Google Play, and hit us back on the replay and review us, because of good content like this. This is about you guys, nothing about us. And that's why we brought Robert on, man, for you guys, not for us, about how hip, slick, and cool we might look doing a podcast, but more so the content that you guys are going to retract from listening and watching us. So hopefully you guys got as much out of this as I did selfishly. I don't have to pay for therapy because I know Robert Posey.
Ty, man, thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And yeah, man.
Right on. You too, brother. We'll catch up soon. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We will see you next week for episode 216. I believe it's Ammon that will be on the show next week. One of your friends. Ammon. We got Ammon.
Tell Ammon I said hello.
I will, brother. You have a great day. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week.